tap to give your favorite snacks something extra, like crunchy jalapenos on nachos or zesty peppercini on sandwiches and sliders. It's just better. Mazzetta is a family-owned Bay Area company providing peppers, olives, pickled vegetables, and sauces since 1935. At Mazzetta, we say that when you share your food, you share a part of who you are. So grab your family and friends and share some unforgettable flavors with Mazzetta.
The lights, the crowd, the moment. When the Warriors take the floor, greatness follows. At Cache Creek Casino Resort, every moment shines. Feel the rush as the reels spin. Breathe in our serene spa. Savor each bite in our award-winning steakhouse. And recharge in the comfort of our luxurious hotel. Cache Creek Casino Resort, proud partner of your Golden State Warriors. Please play responsibly.
15 years ago, PG&E launched Power Pathway, an education and job training program developed to increase the number of skilled workers in the energy industry. Since then, 85% of the graduates have been hired by PG&E or the construction utility industry, focusing on students in underserved communities, women, and military veterans. Power Pathway is helping the next generation of PG&E energy professionals build a better future for themselves and a clean energy future for California. To learn more, visit pge.com/powerpathway.
Thanks for showing up, Dub Nation. Nothing beats catching your Warriors live, and nobody knows that better than you. So next time you want to hit up a game, Ticketmaster's got your back. As the official ticket marketplace of the Warriors and the NBA, even if you're headed to the game last minute, Ticketmaster gets you to the game so you can experience all the sights, sounds, and styles in person. Keep putting that jersey collection to use and get Warriors tickets today at Ticketmaster. Get tickets at Ticketmaster.com/Warriors. See you courtside again soon, Dub Nation.
We're cool for the summer. Demi Lovato. Live in concert in San Francisco. It's not the brand new album, It's Not That Deep, is available everywhere now. For more, visit DemiLovato.com.
The Curry, pump fake, flyby, three ball, got it with the buzzer sounding!
You've been listening to Golden State Warriors basketball on the Warriors Radio Network. Presented by United Airlines. For tickets, visit Warriors.com or call 888-GSW-WHO.
Don't you wish you were here?
This Odyssey Sports broadcast was presented by ZipRecruiter. Looking to hire? ZipRecruiter finds the best candidate for your job fast. Try it for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free.
And that's going to be that. The Warriors will dribble it out. See Kerr walk down and get a handshake and a quick hug from Mitch Johnson. And that's going to be that. Final score in this one, San Antonio 126, Golden State 113.
And the Warriors fall as they close out the first half of the season. All-Star break up next for the Warriors, but they close out the first half of the season with a loss at home to the Spurs. Final score 126-113. Warriors now 29-26, and the Spurs, second best team in the West, now sit at 38-16. Welcome in. It's Warriors wrap up here on 95.7 The Game. Mark Randy with you for the next hour plus or so here on 95.7 The Game as you try to pick apart this Warrior loss. They had a 16-point lead, the Warriors did, with about 6 minutes to go in the third quarter, and then it was all Spurs the rest of the way. It was a team effort, kind of a classic team effort Warrior game. Of course, no Steph. Jimmy Butler, of course, out for the season. A few others not available as well, including Will Richard. Of course, with what has happened just last week at the trade deadline, Kuminga not here, Buddy Hield not here, the guy you got back, Kristaps Porzingis not yet available, a shorthanded Warriors team against a really, really good Spurs team, and the Warriors had a 16-point lead about halfway through the third quarter. And then the Spurs, they dominate basically the entire rest of the ball game. They closed that third quarter on a 24-8 run to tie the score at 94 going to the fourth. They opened the fourth quarter on a 12-2 run. That means means over the course of about 10 minutes of basketball, final 6 minutes of the third, first 4 minutes of the fourth, it was a 36-10 scoring run for the San Antonio Spurs. They go from down 16 to up 10 over the course of just 10 minutes of basketball. The Spurs then kind of just kept the lead hovering right around 10 points for the rest of the game, and the Warriors ultimately lose. Final score 126-113. I think the effort for the Warriors, for the most part, was pretty good in this game. The defense left them midway through the third quarter. The Spurs then got everything they want, and I know, maybe the pessimistic fan will say the Spurs were sleepwalking and they were on a back-to-back. It took them a bit to kind of get going in this game, and that might have something to do with it. I thought the Warriors, though, were the more aggressive team. They were the smoother team. They were, frankly, the better team through the first, 30 minutes of this basketball game, and that's why they had a 16-point lead. They deserved that 16-point lead. They shot the hell out of the ball, particularly early in this game. They took care of the basketball. They finished only with 12 turnovers, but through 2.5 quarters, they had hardly turned the ball over at all. They were doing a lot of things right, and it's why they had a 16-point lead. And then everything changed, and kind of oddly, it changed when Victor Wembanyama checked out, and that's when the Spurs got going. Then Wembanyama checked back in, and he kind of took over the game down the stretch, and the Warriors ultimately lose this one. Again, final score 126-113. Welcome in. Warriors wrap up here on 95.7 The Game. Mark Randy with you live from Chase Center here in San Francisco to close the books on the first half of the season. The Warriors, they closed the first half at 29-26. They're now 4-7 since Jimmy Butler tore his ACL. All right, 888-957-9570 to weigh in. That's both the number to call and join the conversation here on the airwaves. You can also text that same number at 888-957-9570. I see some chats or some texts coming in on the Boxer and Gerson Work Injury Attorneys text line from the 925, from the 818. Let's see, who else? From the 408, the 415, another 408. Keep them coming on the Boxer and Gerson Work Injury Attorneys text line. Plus, the YouTube chat, as always, is up and running for you to join the conversation there at youtube.com/957. The Game Empire, Joseph, Theodore, Moko Coco, Daniel, and a few others. Keep the comments coming on the YouTube chat as always. So that's the big number. 86-70, a Warrior lead with 6:25 to go in the third quarter. They got to that 16-point lead with a couple of nifty Pat Spencer layups. He had one that was a running hook shot on the right side. Then he drove from right to left across the lane and finished kind of a fall away from in the paint. And then Guy Santos had a layup. That was a 6-0 burst. Warriors go up by 16 points. Chase Center was as loud as they were all night. And then to add to that for the Warriors, Wembanyama checked out. They put that run together while Wembanyama was on the floor. They go up 16 with Wemby on the court. And then Wemby checks out, and Keldon Johnson takes over. He scores 7 really quick. It ultimately turns into a 9-0 run. At one point, it's it was an 11-0 run at one point for the Spurs. It turned into a 12-2 beginning in the fourth quarter as well, and the Warriors won. They could not get stops, and then they just were not creating positive possessions on the offensive end. And this was one thing that happened multiple times throughout this game tonight, and I think it's one of the main takeaways. This Warrior team, and it's not rocket science, right? I'm not blowing anybody's minds with what I'm about to say here, but obviously no Jimmy, obviously no Steph tonight. The Warriors are very offensively challenged, and tonight didn't really feel that way for the majority of the game. They scored 113. That was really buoyed by what they did early in this game. They scored 38 points in the first quarter. They could hardly miss. When Wembanyama was on the floor, they were making everything from the outside. When Wembanyama was off the floor, they were getting into the paint almost at will and scoring very often around the rim. That changed particularly in the second half. After they scored 38 points in the first quarter, they go 29 in the second. Not bad. 27 in the third. Also not bad, but in today's day and age, you probably want to be scoring closer to 30 in quarters, and then in the fourth quarter, it was a disaster. They only scored 19 points. But there were also a couple of moments. One of the other big moments in this game, in my opinion, was the end of the second quarter. The Warriors led basically by anywhere around 7 to 9 or 10 points for the majority of really the first 3 quarters of this game, but particularly the first half, up by 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, somewhere around there, basically the entire half. They pushed the lead to as many as 13 at one point, and with 2.5 left in the second quarter, they led by 11. And then the Spurs, they close that second quarter on a 12-5 run. They get within 4 at the halftime break. That 12-5 run by San Antonio included 3 free throws by Vassell at the very tail end of the first half after Guy Santos fouled him shooting a 3 just before the buzzer. And the only reason he got that 3-point shot up was because of a Harrison Barnes offensive rebound off a Wembanyama missed 3. So that was a mistake in and of itself by the Warriors. One, to allow the offensive rebound. 2, to then foul a 3-point shooter on kind of a prayer 3 attempt just before the halftime buzzer. That really hurt the Warriors. That added to the 12-5 run by San Antonio. But even before that, the Warriors had a chance to maybe make this an 18-point game, a 20-point game in the first half, and maybe even going into the halftime break. But they just didn't take advantage of when they were getting stops of the Spurs on the other end. The Spurs, there was a stretch in that second quarter where they weren't really scoring with any kind of pace. The Warriors, though, in response, weren't either. And what happened in this game, particularly late second quarter, and then also for basically the entire fourth quarter and very late in the third, it's not as if they were turning the ball over every time, although their turnovers were kind of saved for just these moments. They only turned the ball over 12 times tonight. If you ask Steve Kerr, would you take 12 turnovers? He would say yes, absolutely, 100% of the time. I will take 12 turnovers. But if you look at individual moments, and you'll probably have Steve Kerr scratching his head about the way that it went down. But late second quarter, there's a stretch where, yes, there were a couple of turnovers in there, but also where the Warriors are just taking what, in my estimation, is not smart shots. And so you have a stretch here where, okay, there was a turnover. Pat Spencer stepped out of bounds near that right corner, or the left corner if you're looking from the half court, the left corner from my vantage point in the arena, the right corner, but generally the left corner of the basketball floor. He steps out of bounds. That's a turnover. Okay, that's one lost possession for the Warriors. A pass from Pat Spencer to a cutting Al Horford, which honestly was a pretty good pass, but Al Horford couldn't catch it. He loses it. It goes out of bounds. Okay, another turnover. And then Pat Spencer, for some reason, decided to take a really tough fadeaway mid-range jumper over Wembanyama. Wembanyama's right there on him, forces a really tough shot. It misses. Not as if that was late shot clock. That was still plenty of time to work the ball around and get a better look. For some reason, Pat Spencer takes that shot. Great ball movement results in a Draymond Green contested 3 over Wembanyama. It was, really good ball movement, but that's not the shot that you take off of good ball movement. A Draymond contested 3 over Wembanyama. Earlier, I think just a couple of possessions before those turnovers, there was also a Draymond 3-point attempt off of an inbound pass that wasn't even all that open, and there was still time on the shot clock. There was also another one, a GP2, corner 3 over Wembanyama. It was a miss. It's not as if the Warriors are turning the ball over every time, but the quality of those looks is just not up to par. And when you look at the box score for the Warriors today, there's a couple of numbers that stand out. It is 3-point attempts by Draymond Green and Gary Payton II. Those two combined to go 4 for 15 from downtown. And it's not as if those guys can't make threes. I thought GP2 largely had a really good game. He was 4 for 11 from the field, 2 for 7 from downtown, 10 points, had an epic chase down block of, I believe it was Keldon Johnson in the second quarter. It was as loud as Chase Center was really all night, in my estimation. He had a really nice fast break, kind of odd alley-oop finish on a pass from Pajemski. He did a lot of things good today. But if leading your team in 3-point attempts, 2 of your top 3 3-point takers tonight are Draymond and GP2. I don't think that's going to work. Now, it does not mean those two had bad games. Draymond was the Warriors' best player tonight. One of them, he and D'Anthony Melton. Melton was also great. Hardly missed, was 6 for 7 from the field. But Draymond flirted with a triple-double, 17 points, 12 rebounds, 8 assists. Turned the ball over twice, despite how often he had the ball in his hands. That's a number of turnovers you will absolutely accept. Not to mention what he did defensively on Wembanyama. Wembanyama still finished with 26 and 9, but that's just because he's one of the best players in the world. But Draymond was great in this game. But I think the larger point is the Warriors go through some of these stretches offensively where even if they're not turning the ball over, they will struggle to score at times because you have guys that aren't really reliable three-point shooters taking shots. Or you have somebody like a Pat Spencer who was, in my estimation, foolishly taking a really tough contested mid-range jumper over the outstretched arms of Victor Wembanyama. There's very few, lower percentage shots than that. And the same thing happened towards the tail end of the third quarter as well, and then early in the fourth quarter. There's a stretch where the Warriors, over the final 6 minutes of the third quarter, where the Spurs went on a 24-8 run, 24-8 run Spurs over the final 6 minutes of the third quarter. The Warriors go 3 for 10 from the field, 1 for 7 from downtown, and they commit 4 turnovers. 4 turnovers in just those 6 minutes. They committed just 8 turnovers the entire rest of the game. A basketball game is what, 48 minutes? Yeah, 48 minutes of basketball in regulation for an NBA basketball game. The Warriors committed 12 turnovers in those 48 minutes. 4 of them came in a 6-minute stretch to close the third quarter, the most important stretch of the basketball game as it turned out. That means they committed 8 turnovers in the other 42 minutes of play. That is like an absurdly good number for the Warriors to commit 8 turnovers over the course of 42 minutes of play, but you just kind of had your turnover bug heightened into one moment, and it's what helped lead to a 24-8 run. So largely the Warriors' offense, I don't think it was the culprit, but there was a couple of moments here or there where they really, really struggled either to take care of the ball in some individual moments or just to be patient enough to wait for the right shot as opposed to take one early in the shot clock when you can get a better shot if you continue to work hard and move the ball. But it was defensively as well that really hurt the Warriors in the third quarter. I mean, the Spurs, they scored 31 points in the third, but you look at what they did in just the final 6.5 minutes of the third quarter, they scored 24 points in the final about 6:25 of the third. That means they scored, just 7 points the first half of the third quarter. The Warriors defense came out of the halftime break, and they were great. The hustle was all over the place. There was a possession by the Spurs where they drove and kicked like 3 times, and they whipped the ball along the perimeter really, really well, and the Warriors were racing around to cover all the shooters, and they did a great job, and they forced a tough contested 3 that missed, and they got the defensive rebound, and then it all just kind of changed. In midway through that third quarter, the Spurs could not miss. The Warriors could not keep drivers in front of them. They were getting into the paint. They were scoring. They were hitting open threes. They were drawing fouls. They were getting to the free throw line. They were, and ones. Wembanyama was getting going in the paint. He had a sequence where he finished an alley-oop from De'Aaron Fox. Wembanyama alley-oops are often kind of strange looking because he's just standing flat-footed under the basket. Draymond Green is right there on him. You can't be any closer to him. You can't really do anything about it, and he just kind of awkwardly does kind of a half jump, not even like a full leap, to catch the alley-oop from De'Aaron Fox, and in one motion just shoves it through the rim. And on the other end, he swatted away a Pat Spencer layup attempt. And then he hit a 3 a possession later, and you just can feel the impact of Victor Wembanyama in those kinds of moments. But the Warriors, largely, I thought they showed a good level of fight and energy and effort in this game. But in key moments, they struggled, and the Spurs, they took advantage, and they ultimately win this game 126-113. It was 86-70 Warriors. With 6:25 to go in the third, then the rest of the basketball game, about 18 minutes worth of basketball, the final quarter and a half. The Spurs closed the game on a 56-27 run. 56-27 Spurs to close the game over the final quarter and a half. They scored 56 points in the final quarter and a half. They go from down 16, 18 minutes later, they win by 13 points. It was a domination by the Spurs late third and the entire fourth, and that was the moment in this game that was decided. Just not enough defense from the Warriors, and then their offense left them in really key moments. I thought it was interesting, however, the way the Warriors did attack offensively, and frankly, I was impressed for the most part. And again, if you want to weigh in, 888-957-9570 to join the conversation. That's both the number to call and to text. 888-957-9570. The 470 texts, by the way. Shout out to Draymond, best game of the season, taking it to Wembanyama all game. The 331, a similar text. Dubs defense held Wemby in check to a decent, not great game for him. Yeah, I thought Draymond did an amazing job. And the way that Draymond bounced back in this game after he committed 7 turnovers on Monday against the Grizzlies and did not close that game down the stretch, this was, if not his best game of the season, as the 470 writes, it was up there. One of his best games of the season. I'd have to go and dive through the game log to be exact, but it was up there, absolutely. I mean, he had 17 points, tied for the Warriors' team high. He had 12 rebounds. It's his third double-digit rebound game of the season, and the previous 2 were all the way in November, so his first double-digit rebound game in months. And then he had 8 assists as well. He was flirting with a triple-double. He was great in this game, and that really is only half of what his impact was, because what he did defensively on Wemby was essentially what the Warriors' game plan, which is the right game plan, was you're going to mirror Wembanyama's minutes. Every second he's on the floor, you're going to be on the floor for the most part. Wembanyama played 33.5 minutes. Draymond played 30 minutes. So there was a few minutes here or there where Draymond was not the one defending Wembanyama. But it was essentially every waking second while you're on the court, you have to deal with Victor Wembanyama, Draymond. And yeah, Wembanyama scored 26 points, but he was 8 for 17 from the field and 2 for 9 from downtown. And there were a couple of sporadic bursts where you said, wow, that is the best player in the world, potentially. Other than that, it wasn't an otherworldly Wembanyama game. And that's a credit to, I think, overall the Warriors' defensive strategy against him, but also Draymond Green specifically. There's few players more well-equipped to be able to deal with someone that is that kind of specimen. He's the most unique basketball player in the entire world, and Draymond is one of the best players in terms of being equipped to deal with that. I thought Draymond had himself an awesome game today, and great to see him bounce back after the way that he performed on Monday versus the Grizzlies. But the way the Warriors attacked offensively, I thought was interesting, because Wembanyama, if he's healthy throughout, the next decade, he's going to win, 3 or 4 more Defensive Players of the Year, Player of the Year awards, at least. He could win that almost every single year. He didn't last year because of what happened to him health-wise, but he won the year prior, and he's probably going to, as long as he's eligible for end-of-season awards, he will be a finalist for that award, basically just the rest of his career, and he's probably going to win it more often than not. So that was a big question, is how does Wembanyama impact the Warriors' offense? And how does his defensive presence impact the Warriors' offense? And really, you could see the difference, you could see the impact, but it didn't really show up on the scoreboard, because the Warriors in the first quarter could not miss. They scored 38 points in the first. They were 16 for 28 from the field. They made 5 threes. But it was 2 entirely different modes of attack. The Warriors scored 23 points in the first 6 minutes. That was while Wembanyama was on the floor. They were 9 of 15 from the field, 4 for 8 from downtown. In those 6 minutes, again, they scored 23 points. And this is while Wembanyama's on the floor, his first 6-minute stretch of basketball. They scored 23 points while Wemby was on the floor. Just 4 of those came in the paint. So 19 of the Warriors' 23 points in that first 6 minutes of play while Wembanyama was on the floor. Only 4 of those 23 were in the paint. 19 of the 23 were outside of the paint, and the majority of those came from the three-point line. 12 of those 19 points from not in the paint early were from the three-point line. And that's clearly a fear of what Wembanyama can do in the paint. But, you know, the Warriors were able to say, all right, we're not going to score in the paint on you very often, Victor, but we're going to space you out and we're going to hit some threes in front of you. Draymond hit a three in front of Wembanyama in that first quarter. There were a couple of others in that first quarter. Moses Moody hit a mid-range jumper over him. Draymond brought Wembanyama out of the paint. And he hit Gee on a little backdoor cut from the baseline for a reverse layup. That was one of their 2 buckets in the paint against Wembanyama. But for the most part, they weren't really that impacted in terms of an ability to score in that first quarter while Wembanyama was on the floor. And then Wembanyama checked out. And guess what happened to the Warriors' offense? It absolutely flipped. So again, Wembanyama checks out about 6 minutes into the game. Warriors score 23 points, only 4 in the paint. Wembanyama then checks out. Final 6 minutes of the first quarter, while Wembanyama is resting, the Warriors scored 15 points. The rest of that quarter, 10 of them were in the paint. 10 of the 15, while Wembanyama was on the bench, scored in the paint. 4 of the 23, while Wembanyama on the floor in the paint. Just a dynamic difference between how the Warriors attacked offensively with Wembanyama on the floor versus with him off the floor. And I honestly was impressed at the Warriors' ability to kind of just switch between mindsets. And it's what made the first quarter, the first half, really the first 2.5 quarters that impressive, because the Warriors were beating the Spurs both from the perimeter with Wembanyama on the floor and then in the paint with Wembanyama off the floor. So I was really impressed with the way the Warriors did that offensively. Then it all kind of changed midway through the third, and the fourth was really ugly. The Warriors only scored 19 points in that fourth quarter. But the Warriors' ability against a really tough team to match up against, their defense versus your offense, I was impressed for the most part by the Warriors. But then the shot making kind of left them late in the basketball game, and with Wembanyama on the floor in crunch time and in those big moments, it was hard for them to score in the paint. And if your shots aren't falling then from the outside, then you're in trouble. Even if you're creating good looks, again, it's what we were talking about earlier as well. The good looks the Warriors are creating, if those are coming for players like GP2 and Draymond, the Spurs will live with that. And that's kind of what happened. Again, 8 3-point attempts for Draymond and 7 for Gary Payton II. That's not ideal if you're the Warriors. Even if they are open looks, you're going to pray that those go in, but if they don't, you're going to be hard-pressed to score a lot at that point. All right, 888-957-9570. We're going to hear from Steve Kerr coming up in a little bit. For now, though, out to the phone lines. Again, 888-957-9570. Chardol is in Fremont and wants to weigh in. What's up, Chardol? You're on Warriors Wrap-Up.
Hi, Mark. How you doing on this Wednesday night? I'm a big fan of your channel. You make some great content videos on the platform. As the Golden State Warriors, as the San Antonio Spurs dismantled the Golden State Warriors by a final score of 126-113 from Chase Center in San Francisco, California. This loss was definitely a tough pill to swallow, especially with San Antonio coming in on such a hot streak, extending their winning streak to 6 games against an impressive Spurs squad consisting of Victor Wembanyama, Stephon Castle, De'Aaron Fox, Harrison Barnes, and Dylan Harper. This was a tough loss, but the Warriors are very resilient. We can bounce back after this game when we face the Celtics after the All-Star break. It's great calling in, and I'll definitely call in again on Warriors Wrap-Up.
Thanks, Chardol. Appreciate the call and the kind words as always. This is a good Spurs team. You mentioned a lot of the names. Wembanyama had 26 points. De'Aaron Fox really hurt the Warriors for the Spurs with 27 points. Keldon Johnson had 21 in this game. He was big, particularly as the guy that kind of jump-started that run to close the third quarter, ultimately that 36-10 run spanning the third and fourth quarters. I thought Harrison Barnes had a big impact in this game despite only scoring 10 points, and the plus-minus backs that up. How about this? Harrison Barnes in 22 minutes was a plus 29. That really just means he was on the floor for those 10 minutes, essentially, when they went on a 36-10 run, but he was out there and good things happened for the Spurs. But that was the run that decided this basketball game. There's no doubt. 36-10 over the final 6 of the third and the first 4 of the fourth. It went from a 16-point Warrior lead to a 10-point Spurs lead, and that was basically the ball game. All right, we're going to take a break here on Warriors Wrap-Up. When we come back, more time for your calls, your texts, and we will hear from Steve Kerr. Plus, we'll see who else is talking pregame for the Warriors. Maybe we'll hear from Draymond Green potentially. Not sure if he's talking tonight. The Warriors go to the All-Star break, suffering a defeat at the hands of the Spurs. The Warriors now 29-26 after tonight's 126-113 loss to the Spurs. Time for a break. Back with more Warriors Wrap-Up. Mark Randy with you live from Chase Center right here on 95.7 The Game.
Looking for lifelong financial guidance? Look no further than Pettinelli Financial Partners, your dedicated financial coaches for every stage of life's journey. Whether you're planning for retirement, starting a family, or buying a home, we're here for you every step of the way. Visit PettinelliFP.com. The financial consultants at Pettinelli Financial Partners are registered representatives with and securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advice offered through Stratos Wealth Partners, a registered investment advisor. Stratos and Pettinelli are separate entities from LPL Financial.
What if the greatest player on the court wasn't who you expected? This February, get ready for heart, hustle, and a whole new kind of hero in Sony's GOAT, the animated sports adventure for the whole family. From the team behind unforgettable stories and executive produced by Steph Curry comes a movie about believing in yourself, defying the odds, and proving that greatness can come from anywhere. Don't miss Sony's GOAT, exclusively in movie theaters February 13th. Bring the family, feel the fun, and witness the rise of a true GOAT. GOAT, rated PG, only in theaters February 13th.
Time is valuable. That's why Lowe's Blueprint Takeoffs turn blueprints into quotes faster. Bring us your plans, and we'll generate itemized material lists to make quoting easier so you can get back to building. Plus, at the Lowe's Pro Desk, you get access to thousands of building materials not sold in store. And when your order's ready, we'll deliver everything to the job site. Improving is easy at Lowe's.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack, but not with ZipRecruiter. Its powerful technology actively finds and invites qualified candidates to apply to your job. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you the needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
ZipRecruiter. Neuropathy is a debilitating condition that is sometimes misdiagnosed. Symptoms can include pain, numbness, and tingling in your hands, legs, and feet. Neuropathy is a progressive condition that only worsens unless you get effective treatment. SF Bay Wellness is a leader in neuropathy reversal and uses FDA-cleared, non-invasive electric cell therapy to restore nerve function with no injections, no drugs, and no surgery. The treatments have a 95% success rate. If distance is a factor, ask about our virtual consultation option. Call SF Bay Wellness at 844-94-NERVE for the $99 neuropathy evaluation and receive a personal treatment plan that is tailored to your needs. Don't wait another day. Call 844-94-NERVE. That's 844-94-NERVE. Why keep suffering with the painful symptoms of neuropathy? You deserve to live a pain-free life. Start getting the treatment you need for your neuropathy symptoms. Call today.
Sound familiar? At Mattress Firm, we understand there are many problems that can keep you up at night, like snoring, aches and pains, or sleeping hot. Our sleep experts have the unrivaled know-how to match you with a mattress that can help. And now at Mattress Firm, upgrade to a Tempur-Pedic and learn how you can get 3% back plus an instant gift. For the great sleep you deserve, visit Mattress Firm. We make sleep easy. Restrictions apply. See store or website for details.
Hi, I'm Brian, your friend and jeweler at Shane Company, and we've partnered with Cupid to bring you the best Valentine's Day gifts, even if you forgot. We won't tell. From heart necklaces with sparkling diamonds to stylish gold hoops, every piece is made with love. Plus, there's still time to propose. We make it easy to create their dream engagement ring. We have meaningful gifts for every budget. It'll look like you've been planning this for months. Come see us in store or at shaneco.com. Shane Company, your friend and jeweler.
Now Now it's time for the closer of the week. Presented by LiftMaster and R&S Doors. Turn your garage into the envy of the neighborhood. Visit rsdoors.com.
This week's closer comes from Luis from Burlingame. We had our roll-up door replaced for the second time. Ask for Axel and Sean for your door replacement. They are great technicians. Thank you, R&S. Recently, my garage door opener was not working. I was in need of a closer. I was put in touch with R&S Doors, and they hooked me up with a brand new garage door opener from LiftMaster. With LiftMaster's MyQ connectivity, my garage door opener can be controlled right from my smartphone. You'll know when a door or gate has been left open and can close it with a tap, no matter where I am. Be one of the first 10 callers and receive 20% off a LiftMaster garage door opener.
Call 1-800-FIX-A-DOOR. That's 800-FIX-A-DOOR. Or visit rsdoors.com. R&S Doors. Look for the red truck.
Honey, that flu keeping you up? Did you take NyQuil Intense Flu?
Nah, I got this. Okay, I don't got this.
Yeah, you need NyQuil Intense Flu.
Undo your flu with NyQuil Intense Flu. NyQuil Intense Flu provides powerful relief of your flu symptoms so you can sleep.
You do got this.
NyQuil Intense Flu. The nighttime sniffling, aching fever. Best sleep with the flu medicine. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Grabbed by Vassell. Vassell with a 2-on-4. Drives around Pajemski. Swatted away by Payton. Barnes gets it back, and he got fouled. Gary Payton the second with one of the spectacular reject. And listen to the crowd stand and applaud his hustle. My goodness, just looking at the replay of it. Just ridiculous.
Now back to Warriors Wrap Up on 95.7 The Game.
That was one of the better moments of the basketball game tonight. GP2 a chase down block. Unfortunately, the Spurs then got the rebound after GP2 spiked it off the backboard. And then the Warriors fouled the Spurs, and they got to the free throw line anyway. And GP2 was kind of upset about it after the fact. I think he was upset that his block, and it was an epic block, ultimately didn't really save the Warriors from anything because the Spurs then got to the free throw line. But it was one of the best moments in terms of the crowd, getting up on their feet and applauding. You could hear Tim Roy, the voice of the Warriors here on 95.7 The Game, say exactly that. GP2 got up, and I thought he had himself a pretty good basketball game tonight as well. The Warriors really got contributions from a number of different players. They played 9. All 9 scored at least 6 points. And let's see, 8 of the 9 scored 9 or more points. And let's see, 6 of the 9 scored double-digit points. Moses Moody, Draymond Green, and D'Anthony Melton all scored 17 points in this game. Pajemski added 16. Quentin Post had 12. By the way, good to see Quentin Post hit some shots and get, not a ton of minutes, but last time out on Monday, he played just 5 minutes. He played 13 minutes tonight, made 3 of 5 from deep, 4 of 6 from downtown, 12 points for Quentin Post. Maybe that gets his confidence back a little bit, at least in terms of shooting the basketball, but 12 points from Quentin Post. You had 10 off the bench from GP2, as I mentioned, 9 from Guy Santos, 9 from Pat Spencer, and then 6 from Al Horford. It was a team effort, but just not quite enough defense down the stretch, and the offense left them in the fourth quarter as well, and the Warriors ultimately lose this game 126-113. While we are talking about this team effort, this is a good opportunity for our GOAT report. It's time for the GOAT report, breaking down what normally would be Steph Curry's game night numbers, brought to you by Sony Pictures. GOAT, executive produced by Steph Curry, exclusively in movie theaters, February 13th. In place of Steph tonight, who's out with a runner's knee, likely back in the Warriors' next game a week from tomorrow after the All-Star break. The Celtics in town. But in place of Steph, tonight's GOAT of the game is Draymond Green. Draymond was awesome in this game. We were talking about it earlier. If not his best game of the season, top 3 Draymond Green game this season, he was great in this game. 17 points, 12 rebounds, 8 assists, only 2 turnovers after 7 turnovers on Monday versus the Grizzlies. And that is largely just the offensive half of his game. Of course, 10 of those 12 rebounds were defensive boards, and that's a big part of his game as well. But what he did on Wembanyama, there's few other guys on the face of the earth that can defend Wembanyama as well as Draymond Green does. Wembanyama still got his. Wemby scored 26, had 9 boards, 4 assists. He's special. He's absolutely ridiculous. He's great. He's not a player that you can say, I'm going to limit you to 8 points, right? Wembanyama on an off day is still getting 20 and 10, generally speaking. That's how good he is. But Draymond did as good of a job as I think certainly anybody on the Warriors could do, and probably just about anybody in the entire league could do on Wembanyama. I mean, last night versus the Lakers, Wemby scored 40, and 37 of them were in the first half. 25 of those 37 were in the first quarter, and he scored 17 points in the first 4 minutes of that game. And the Warriors held him to 26 points on 17 shots, and a big part of that was Draymond. Every waking second Draymond was on the court, he had to deal with Victor Wembanyama. So Draymond Green, well-deserved GOAT of the game in place of Steph tonight. That is tonight's GOAT Report, powered by Sony Pictures GOAT, executive produced by Steph Curry. Catch GOAT exclusively in movie theaters February 13th. Don't miss it. So, great game for Draymond Green, and just really, really good to see him bounce back the way he did after a rough game on Monday and a rough couple of games, a rough stretch. He was also not in the game down the stretch in that comeback win over Phoenix last Thursday. He did close on Saturday in LA versus the Lakers. Warriors lost that game. And then in the comeback win over the Grizzlies 2 nights ago on Monday, he was not on the floor for that either. So the Warriors' 2 most recent wins came in dramatic, come-from-behind fashion late, and Draymond was not on the floor for those. He was, by my estimation, their best player on the floor tonight when you include his impact both offensively and defensively. So he's a well-deserving go to the game there for Draymond Green. All right, 888-957-9570 if you want to weigh in. We're going to hear from Steve Kerr momentarily. First, though, let's go to Ben in San Francisco, who joins the conversation over the phones. What's up, Ben? You're on Warriors Wrap-Up. Mark Randy with you. What do you got?
Hey, good to talk to you. You read my mind, actually, giving that shout-out to Draymond and also to Post. I know Draymond is actually the bigger story tonight, and I'm glad to actually see him, like you said, just recover and play a bit better and actually show that any presumption by me including, that you know, he may not need his defense or he's kind of on the way out. You know, there's still more to be written there. I was really hoping that game would turn into a win. I don't feel too bad about it being a loss. I really felt we were actually getting at the Spurs in kind of a trap game for once. I feel like this team hasn't always been able to take other teams' best punches at times and hasn't been that resilient. But seeing this specific group of players play the Spurs as well as they did for as long as they were able to, I'll take that as a bit of a win. And just lastly on the topic of Quentin Post, seeing him in kind of this double big lineup and all that stuff, I haven't seen that in a while. I don't know if that's just going to be kind of where Kristaps is going to factor in later on, or if this is a good opportunity for Post to develop. This kind of reminded me actually of that 15-win season in 2019, 2020, that type of win, or that type of effort that would end up in a loss. So yeah, it didn't feel that bad. I hope this group can keep making games at least a little bit competitive.
Yeah, Ben, I appreciate the call. I personally did not think 2019, 2020, this has kind of felt like, I think, a lot of Warrior games the last couple of years. And it's easy because no Jimmy Butler, but this feels like kind of how the Warriors would play a lot of basketball games pre-Jimmy Butler last year. And tonight obviously is special with no Steph, and that's a huge deal, a bigger deal than no Jimmy. Of course, Steph is Steph. But this is also kind of a game, I think Ben's spot on, where I don't know if trap game is the right phrase, but the Spurs maybe kind of sleepwalking a bit through the first half. They just played last night in LA and they dominated. It's not like Wembanyama had to play 40 minutes last night. He played, I think, like 26 minutes or something like that last night. So it wasn't like your classic, tough, really difficult back-to-back, but it's never easy playing in L.A. The night before, flying late at night up to the Bay Area. Not a long flight, but it's still not easy. Getting to sleep, I don't know, sometime at like 2 a.m. Or even later than that, depending on how long it took them to get to the airport and to fly up to SFO. It's not easy no matter what. So there were some things working in the Warriors' favor just as the way this game was set up. And then the Spurs, maybe they woke up, whatever you want to call it, midway through the third quarter, and they dominated the rest of the way. Again, after the Warriors went up 16 to take they went up 16 at 86-70 with 6.5 left in the third. The Spurs, the rest of the way, 56-27. 56-27 the rest of the way. San Antonio, they go from down 16 to winning by 13, and they just kind of flipped the switch, and they dominated the rest of the way. But this is a really, really good team, and I don't think the Warriors are in a spot where moral victories feel good to really anybody in the franchise. But I was impressed they were up by 16. I'm not going to sit here and say that the loss is a good thing, but they were up by 16 on the second best team in the Western Conference and a team that is 4-1 versus OKC, the defending champions. Like, that's a really, really good San Antonio team, and for the most part, they're at full strength, right? Stephon Castle was questionable, but he played in this one. Wembanyama, of course, played. Vassell played. De'Aaron Fox played. Champagnie played. Dylan Harper off the bench, their rookie out of Rutgers. Keldon Johnson, Harrison Barnes, Luke Cornett. They're basically fully healthy. They released Sohan, kind of odd situation there with Sohan, who was an all-rookie team selection in 2023, and now they've mutually agreed to part ways, and he's going to be a free agent, and we'll see where he signs. I would imagine there's going to be a handful of playoff teams, postseason teams in the postseason hunt that are going to be interested in him. A kind of strange situation there, but they're obviously a very good team with or without him. So being up by 16, I don't really care what the circumstances were. That was pretty impressive by the Warriors. But then they could not get a stop. Their outside shots stopped falling, and with Wembanyama patrolling the paint, it's going to be harder for you to score inside. As a result, if you can't score on the outside and Wembanyama's on the inside, you're going to have a hard time scoring, period, and that's what happened in this game. Points in the paint tonight, 60-42 in favor of San Antonio, which sounds about right. There were stretches where the Warriors could score at the paint, particularly when Wembanyama was off the floor, right? It happened in the first quarter. The first quarter is the perfect example of this. The Warriors scored 23 points the first 6 minutes of this game while Wemby was on the floor. Only 4 of those 23 were in the paint. Wemby checks out. The Warriors score 15 points while Wemby's out, 10 of those 15 in the paint. But when Wembanyama's on the floor, he kind of shuts that down single-handedly, and it comes down to, one, can you create good looks from the outside for decent shooters, and are they going to make them on that night? And far too often, late third and for the entire fourth, either the Warriors were creating those looks for not consistent three-point shooters, or they weren't creating those looks enough at all, or their good shooters were missing them, which I don't think happened all that much, right? Melton was 5 for 6 from downtown. Post was 3 for 5 from downtown. Moody was 3 for 8 from downtown. You'll take all those numbers. Those are pretty good numbers from deep by those three, and those are 3 of your best shooters as presently constructed with no Steph on the floor, no Kristaps Porzingis, right, and no Seth Curry, right? Like, Moody, Melton, and Post are some of your best three-point shooters. But it was the fact that the others were getting the three-point looks, and they weren't making them because Draymond Green is not an amazing three-point shooter. And I can say the same thing for GP2. That was good defense by the Spurs to kind of funnel looks to those guys throughout the game here tonight. You're listening to 95.7 The Game, KUGMZ FM and HD1 San Francisco, an Odyssey Sports Station, and the home of the Golden State Warriors and Valkyries, always live on the free Odyssey app, coming to you live from the Laughing Monk Studios. We got to talk about Podziemski as well. We will get to that. He played 36 minutes tonight, scored 16 points. His first quarter was honestly pretty flawless. He was hitting his shots. It changed after that. He was 4 for 4 from the field at one point. He went 1 for 8 the rest of the way. But it's a lot of the other stuff, I think, that's kind of getting in the way for Podziemski. We'll talk about that coming up in a little bit. First, though, let's hear from Steve Kerr, who spoke post-game here at Chase after the Warriors fell 126-113 to the Spurs. That closes the book on the unofficial first half of the Warriors season. They've now played 55 games, so we're well past the actual halfway point, but the All-Star break has arrived for the Warriors, and they're sitting at 29-26. Here's Steve Kerr talking about tonight's loss, 126-113 to the Spurs. Here's Coach Kerr.
Up 16 midway through the third quarter. What flipped after that?
Well, they turned up their defense, and we needed to respond and get a couple hoops, and we just couldn't get anything to go. And so the way they closed that quarter, I don't know if it was 16-0 run or whatever it was, but it just changed all the momentum that we had built throughout the game, and so they went into the fourth quarter with all the momentum, and so that was a turning point, obviously. But our guys played great and really competed, moved the ball, did everything possible to win the game, and it's too bad we couldn't kind of finish it off, but proud of the guys for the effort.
This is obviously like a checkpoint of the season right here going into the break. So much has happened over the first few months. How would you just kind of sum up what has been and where you feel like y'all are at 29, 26?
Well, you just said it. I mean, a lot has happened with Jimmy's injury and the trade, and we've got a chance to get recharged here over the break and come back, and we've got plenty to play for. So obviously we'll have to incorporate Kristaps, get Steph back, and we feel like we can be a really good team. And I think our guys are showing why with the way they're competing and moving the ball and playing together.
I was going to ask you about both of them. Where do you feel like they're at, with this week ahead?
Kristaps played today and was moving better than yesterday, and seemed to be in a good rhythm. I didn't see it, but the development coaches, I think it was half court, still half court, but I believe it was fives, half court. And they said he looked good, and so we'll just see how it plays out.
What are you hearing on Steph? Like, what's Rick?
I talked to Steph earlier, and he said he was feeling better, so he's trending in a good direction, but it'll be just day to day when he comes back.
Steve, you mentioned it a couple times. You just mentioned it there to start. The group's really playing hard. How are you going to define success in the second half, given, as you've also mentioned, the expectations for the group have changed because of all the things that have happened?
I think as a coach, you just, that's all you want to see is, competition, energy and execution. And so that's, if we can accomplish those things, then I think we'll be successful. And, we feel good about adding Kristaps gives us another dimension, and obviously getting Steph back will change everything. But success will come if we continue the process we've been showing.
Steve, we saw what Draymond did against the Spurs a few months ago in San Antonio. Did you feel like he leveled up a little bit tonight against Victor Wembanyama with his near triple-double?
Leveled up meaning what?
Just his level of play tonight and everything, his extra competitive and fire.
Draymond was incredible. This is when he's at his best with, the biggest challenges. He's such a great defender, one of the all-time greats, and guarding a guy like Victor, gives him a challenge that he relishes, and I think it really raises his offensive game as well. Draymond played a fantastic game tonight.
Moses had a lot of good off-ball movement, a lot of good shots off of movement. What have you kind of seen from him as of late? I think 14 of his last 15 games in double figures.
Yeah, he's just found a good rhythm shooting the ball. He had a stretch there where he was cold, but we know what kind of shooter he is, and that stuff always evens out. So he's just in a good groove, and he's there for us every night. Just, he's so steady. That's what we love about Mo. He's there for us every night and competes and guards the best guys, and really, really good player for us.
All right, that's Steve Kerr post-game after the Warriors fall to the Spurs, 126-113. A few things there from Steve. First, what he said about Draymond. I think he's spot on. Draymond was absolutely phenomenal tonight. And Draymond has always been the kind of player where his impact goes so much deeper than the box score. Tonight was a game where you could absolutely see his big impact on the box score, but it was not his full impact. He had 17 points, which was tied for a team high with a couple of other guys, Melton and Moody. 12 rebounds and 8 assists. The ball was in his hands on nearly every possession that he was on the floor for, and he turned the ball over just twice. You will absolutely accept 2 turnovers from that guy who has the ball in his hands as often as he does. It's when you get to 4 or 5 is where you say, ooh, that's too many, but 2 you will absolutely take. It's extremely difficult over the course of the 30 minutes that Draymond played with how often he had the ball in his hands tonight without Steph and without Jimmy, of course. There's a lot more kind of decision-making and initiating done by Draymond. It's impossible to not turn the ball over, or nearly impossible. So that's not an issue. The turnovers tonight after 7 on Monday, that was definitely an issue. But again, 17 points, 12 boards, 8 assists. He was phenomenal. But what has always been a little more difficult, I think, to see or to understand the impact of Draymond is the other half of the floor, right? You can point out steals and blocks, and those are great, and deflections, right? Those are tracked on, the advanced statistics page on NBA.com, and who leads the league in deflections and what some people call stocks, which is combined steals and blocks. And you can include total deflections in there as well. And that's oftentimes the stats that are cited as, the guys that are going to win Defensive Player of the Year. Who led the team in who led the league in deflections this season? Last year it probably was someone like Dyson Daniels for the Hawks, and he was a finalist for Defensive Player of the Year. But Draymond's impact defensively, it's not that he can't, get some steals and block some shots. Tonight, didn't do either of those, but that's not his calling card defensively. It's what he does on a one-on-one matchup versus a guy that's almost a foot taller than him, right, in Victor Wembanyama. It's how he defends a Nikola Jokic. It's how he helps everybody out on the entire floor on the defensive end. It's how he takes away multiple guys at a single time. It's how he can erase a 2-on-1 break for an opposing team by himself. And there's nothing that goes in the box score for forcing a missed shot or for kind of baiting a guy into a pass when Draymond's already recovering to the guy he's making the pass to, and he's defending 2 guys at once. That has always been Draymond's superpower, and maybe he doesn't get a chance to show it as often for whatever reason, whether it's because his body isn't letting him, hard for him to get up for XYZ game, but easier for him to get up for a game against Victor Wembanyama and the Spurs, right? Whatever the reason is, the reality is when he still shows it, like tonight, he's still quite a special player. Now, it's not as common as it has been, and I'm not sitting here telling you tonight erases what the rest of the season has been for Draymond, because I think he'd probably tell you it hasn't been anywhere near his best season of basketball. But tonight he was amazing, and Steve Kerr's just absolutely spot on with his assessment of that tonight. The other thing that Steve Kerr said was updates on both Kristaps Porzingis and Steph. Steve said that Porzingis played today. He said he thinks it was half court. Moving better than yesterday, and he seemed to be in a good rhythm. That's the quote from Steve. And then on Steph, Steve said, quote, "I talked to Steph earlier, and he said he was feeling better, so he's trending in a good direction. He'll be day-to-day when he comes back, and when he comes back means once he returns from the All-Star break." Steph is an All-Star. I would imagine he's going to be there at All-Star Weekend. He's not going to be playing on Sunday in the All-Star game. But as an All-Star starter, I would imagine he's still going to be there. And then normally what happens is these players, after All-Star Weekend on Sunday, they fly out and they go take a quick trip with family or friends or whoever, because the Warriors' next game isn't until Thursday, 8 days from now. So, you go take care of your All-Star business, All-Star Weekend business, and for Steph, it's probably more mingling and hanging out with the other All-Stars than actually playing any kind of basketball. And then Sunday evening, you fly out, go hang out somewhere for a couple of days, and you get back into town and get ready for the Celtics coming up on Thursday. So Steve Kerr saying he'll be day-to-day when he gets back to the Warriors facility. I personally would be pretty surprised if he's not playing on Thursday when the Celtics are in town, and that is also the circled date for Kristaps Porzingis. Neither of those, of course, confirmed, but I think we can expect that for the Warriors coming up on Thursday, 8 days from now, when they play their next regular season game. All right. Warriors wrap up here on 95.7 The Game with you for a handful more minutes on Warriors wrap up. Mark Randy with you. If you want to weigh in, join the conversation, you can do so at 888-957-9570. I like this this text from the 360, very positive, and I want to highlight it. Again, if you want to join the conversation, you can do so on the Boxer and Gerstein Work Injury Attorneys text line, 888-957-9570. The 360 says the Warriors split. I would imagine the last two games he's talking about. They split their last two games and won the game they had to win, and now closer to getting Curry and Kristaps Porzingis hopefully next week. LFG. That's one way to think about it. The Memphis win was one you absolutely had to have, and it was dangerously close to being one of the Warriors' worst losses of the season. And it does not matter that Jimmy did not play. It does not matter that Steph did not play. That would have been a terrible, terrible loss if the Warriors had lost that game against Memphis. Memphis, in my estimation, was, I don't know if actively trying to lose is the right way to put it. Let's just put it this way. They were not incredibly eager to push all their chips in the middle of the table in that fourth quarter and win that basketball game. Memphis probably more interested in losing right now than winning. Memphis is in a spot where they can absolutely see themselves perhaps sneaking into a top 4 draft pick potentially in this year's draft. They're 20-33, and if they just lose a lot the rest of the season, they could have a shot to maybe get a franchise-altering kind of player. Right, the top 3 in most mock drafts are Darren Peterson of Kansas. You got Debanja of BYU and Boozer of Duke. Those are 3 players that have been amazing at the college rank so far this year. And if you have the possibility to get your hands on one of those guys, and it's not just a 3-person draft either, this is a really, really deep draft, you have interest, and it's an issue in the NBA. Tanking is an absolute issue. But I don't blame the teams. It is a legitimate strategy. There's a lot of logic behind it. It's what allowed the San Antonio Spurs, and a little bit of luck obviously is mixed in there as well, but it's what allowed the San Antonio Spurs to suddenly look like one of the more promising teams of the next decade because they won a lottery and they got Victor Wembanyama. The Mavericks aren't the best example because they lucked into the number 1 overall pick. They were nowhere near one of the worst teams in the league. But once they figured out what was going on post-Luka Doncic trade and with Anthony Davis's injury history, they weren't eager to win basketball games late. And who knows, maybe one loss was the difference in them getting their ping pong ball picked number 1 overall versus picking, 8th. And that's the difference in them feeling how they do now about their future, which probably is pretty good considering how good Cooper Flagg has looked. The point is, it is a viable strategy, and the NBA needs to do something about it. I'm getting off track because I was talking about the Warriors game against Memphis, but the point is, Memphis was not really trying to win that basketball game, and the Warriors took advantage, and they got the job done. But that was dangerously close to being a terrible, terrible, terrible loss. But again, as the Boxer and Gerson Work Injury Attorneys text line of 360 points out, they split. And you beat the team you should beat, and you lost to the team you would expect to lose to. So, okay, that's a par. You move on to the next hole. You get healthy over the All-Star break, and then you gear up for the rest of the season and in the second half of the season. Now, I did get a text, and this is not from the Boxer and Gerson work injury attorneys text line, but to my personal phone, to a guy that you guys all probably just got done watching on NBC Sports Bay Area, Bonte Hill, who hosts pre- and post games for the Warriors on NBC Sports Bay Area. Of course, you know him from his time here at 95.7 The Game as well. Bonte texted me after I was done saying I expect Steph and Kristaps to come back on Thursday out of the break, and Bonte said the Warriors shouldn't rush Curry back. They'll be in the play-in no matter what. And Bonte's absolutely right. If there's a risk in you feel like Steph re-injuring himself or making it worse, you don't bring him back on Thursday. My read is that Steph is going to be feeling well enough to play by Thursday. But as you look at the Warriors' schedule, you look at the NBA standings, there is absolutely, I wouldn't say zero chance, but like maybe 0.01% chance the Warriors aren't a play-in team. You just look at who are behind the Warriors in the Western Conference standings. The Warriors are 8th right now, and they've been safely in 8th for like 2.5 months now. And despite everything that's happened, they basically haven't moved. They haven't gained any upward ground, and they haven't lost any ground behind them either. They're 3 games behind the Suns for 7. Feels like they've been anywhere between 2 and 4 behind the Suns or whoever was in that 7 spot for a really long time. For a moment, it was the T-Wolves. The Lakers are getting awfully close to being in that spot as well. And they're 2.5 games up on the Clippers for that 8 spot. The Warriors currently on that 8 spot. You can get caught by the Clippers, absolutely. The Clippers, though, they traded away James Harden. It's going to depend on how healthy Kawhi is down the stretch. That's possible. 2.5 games is not all that much to make up over the course of however many games the Warriors have left. What, like 27 or 26, whatever the number is? That's possible. The Blazers, they could catch the Warriors as well, right? I'm a big fan of the Blazers. They haven't been playing really good basketball of late. They're 3 games behind the Warriors right now. But Denny Avdia and Shaedon Sharpe and Toumani Camara and Donovan Clingan, their second-year big man from UConn, they got some pieces. Avdia is going to get MVP votes. He's been awesome. They could catch the Warriors, theoretically. Okay, so you got 2 teams there that you feel like theoretically could catch the Warriors. If that were to happen, the Warriors would be the 10 seed, and that's still in the play-in. That would mean somebody else would also have to catch the Warriors, and those others are the Grizzlies, who we just got done talking about. They're more interested in losing basketball games than winning. They've lost 4 games in a row. The Dallas Mavericks, who were playing better basketball, they've since lost 8 games in a row. And Cooper Flagg, I think it is minor, but he suffered an injury. And who knows if it's going to keep him out for some time. If it does, then the Mavericks are going to go into full-blown tank mode. They're probably already in that mode anyway. They've lost 8 games in a row. The Jazz, crazily enough, they've won consecutive games, but they're trying to lose. You saw what they did in Miami last night or Monday night, and they've been doing this for a handful of games now. It does not matter the situation. They could be up, they could be down, it could be tied, it could be in the balance. They're not playing Lauri Markkanen and Jaren Jackson Jr., who they just traded for and gave up a boatload of first-round picks for. They're not playing them in the fourth quarter. And Will Hardy, their head coach, when asked if he was close to playing those guys in the fourth, he said, no, I wasn't close. They're not even trying to hide the fact they're trying to lose basketball games. Of late, it's not worked. They've won consecutive games. The point is, though, Utah is trying to lose games as well. And even if they were trying to win, the Warriors have an 11-game edge on them. They're not catching the Warriors. No team currently outside of the play-in is going to catch the Warriors. Now, there are tiers in the play-in, but the bottom line is, even if the Warriors are terrible the rest of the season, they will be a play-in team. Now, would you rather be the 8 or the 10? Of course, you'd rather be the 8. The way the play-in works is the 7 seed, right now the Suns, plays the 8 seed, right now the Warriors. Winner of that game is the 7 seed, and has the opportunity to take on the San Antonio Spurs currently, the number 2 seed in the West. The loser of that 7-8 game then plays the winner of the 9-10 game. Right now, that 9-10 game is Clippers and Blazers, and then the winner of that secondary game, right, the 7-8 loser versus the 9-10 winner, the winner of that game is the 8 seed and would get, in all likelihood, OKC. So you, of course, would rather be the 8 because that would mean you get 2 shots at a play-in game, and you only have to win 1 to make it. If you're the 9, you have to win 2 games to make it. If you're the 10, you have to win 2 games to make it, and both of those games will be on the road. So there's obviously tiers in where you want to be in the play-in. There's a definite benefit to being the 7 or the 8, and even the 9 over, of course, the 10. But the larger point is that it is almost like mathematically impossible for the Warriors to not be a play-in team. Not mathematically, but you know what I mean when you just factor in what these teams behind the Warriors are actively trying to do right now. The Warriors will be a play-in team. It's a question of will they be 7, unlikely, 8, certainly possible, 9, possible, or 10, which is also possible. They will be in one of those 4 spots, in my estimation. The 6 is also still possible. They're 4 games behind the Lakers. The Lakers are falling fast, but that would mean the Warriors would have to play really good basketball down the stretch. And considering the way that they look right now, and tonight was not a fair evaluation of who the Warriors will be, that seems difficult for the Warriors to do. They seem destined for the play-in, which is where they were last year. But, of course, they were the 7 last year. They won their first play-in game, and then they got a matchup that they felt was favorable in Houston. Right now you're looking at, if you're in the play-in, you're taking on either OKC or San Antonio. I know the Warriors have a couple of wins over San Antonio earlier this season, but let's think back to what happened in those games, right? I talked about this on Warriors Live. The Warriors beat San Antonio twice over the span of 3 days in the middle of November. A 125-120 win, and then a 109-108 win. Steph scored 46 points in the first game, 49 points in the second game. Jimmy scored 28 in the first game and 21 in the second game. In those 2 games, narrow victories by the Warriors over Wemby and the Spurs in San Antonio, the Warriors scored, again, in those 2 games, the Warriors scored 234 points. 144 of them were scored by either Steph or Jimmy. That's 61% of the Warriors' points in those 2 wins versus the Spurs scored by Steph and Jimmy. It took 46 from Steph and 28 from Jimmy to win by 5. It took 49 from Steph and 21 from Jimmy to win by 1. Now you're looking at potentially a matchup with the Spurs in the playoffs without Jimmy, and where you're going to need Steph to score 50 every night just to have a chance. Like, that's kind of what it would feel like if you're the Warriors. So the play-in is, it feels like the Warriors' destiny this year, considering everything that's happened. It is. I don't think it will be as favorable of a draw for the Warriors this year as it was last year when they got the Houston Rockets, who were a team that, was just beginning to kind of figure out who they were, had very, very little postseason experience, and the Warriors still narrowly blew that series after they led 3-1. They won it, and you give them credit, and who knows, they were a Steph, calf pull away from potentially winning that series and advancing to the Western Conference Finals. That's all ancient history at this point. The point is, though, I don't think the Warriors will get as kind of a draw in the play-in this year, if that is indeed where they end up, which seems very, very likely. I did want to talk about Brandon Podziemski because I think this is something that is becoming pretty common, and I think it is the reality for Podziemski at this point. Podziemski tonight, he finished with 16 points, 5 of 12 from the field, 5 rebounds, and a couple of assists. He was a team worst minus 27 in 36 minutes of play. I did tell you take his over on rebounds, and he barely got there. I said over 4.5. He finished with 5, so at least we got that. The Warriors lost this game by 13. Podziemski was a minus 27. That means while Podziemski was on the bench, the Warriors were a plus 14. Plus minus in a single game is a very, very imperfect statistic, and it's often misleading. What this shows is Podziemski was just on the floor when the Spurs went on that 36-10 run. Like that's a 26-point difference, and Podziemski's plus-minus was -27. He was on the floor for the majority of that time. Now, there is blame to go around for everyone that was on the floor in that stretch, but this was a game that swung so quickly that the plus-minuses are going to be really heavily influenced by that one stretch, and I think it's pretty unfair to draw a large conclusion out of a plus-minus in a single game when that's the way the game went. I think the larger point about Podziemski is his value or his ability to impact positively your basketball team drastically changes based on who's available. And it kind of is similar to what Steve Kerr said about Draymond Green yesterday on with Willard and Dibbs and the guys, and it was a great interview. If you missed it, I suggest giving it a listen. You can find it on YouTube, 95.7 The Game's YouTube channel, or on the free Odyssey app, wherever you get your podcasts. But he was asked about, one, Draymond not closing games of late. Didn't close in Phoenix last week. Didn't close on Monday versus the Grizzlies. And he was also asked about Draymond's 7 turnovers. And the way that Steve answered both of those questions was essentially beginning with, well, it becomes a whole lot more difficult when Steph's not on the floor. And he's obviously right. Of course he's right. Steph makes everything easier for everybody, specifically on the offensive end. With Podziemski, I think it's similar. Not because so much of what Draymond does is unlocking Steph, but what Podziemski does is a lot of the little things that kind of go unnoticed, I think, at times, if you're just kind of casually watching the basketball game. But those things are valuable when you have others to do the heavy lifting. But when Jimmy's out and when Steph's out and you need somebody to step up and do the heavy lifting, I think because Steve clearly is a fan of Podziemski and Steve, I'm talking about Steve Kerr, because he's clearly a fan of Podziemski as a basketball player, because of Podziemski's confidence in himself, I think what oftentimes happens is Podziemski becomes the guy that feels like, okay, it's time for me to do a lot of the heavy lifting. And that's where I think the Warriors and Podziemski run into trouble. And what happened tonight, Podziemski in the first quarter, and first quarter plus a few minutes in the second quarter, was really good. It was just quite as simple as his shot falling. He made his first 4 shots. He had 10 points, 4 for 4 from the field, and he made his only 3. And those were his numbers early in the second quarter. He finished, though, the rest of the game with just 6 more points and was 1 for 8 from the field the rest of the game. You could feel him feeling himself, and that's not a bad thing. Once he got his first couple of shots to go, and they were not easy shots, right? We were talking about like a fading, leaner shot from off a drive, left to right, in the paint, over the top of the shot blocker, Wembanyama, and he got it to go. Not an easy shot, but he got it to go, and he began to feel himself. But then you could kind of feel maybe him put the pressure, the expectation on himself and feel like, all right, it's my time to try to score and kind of carry the load offensively. And the rest of the game, it was difficult for Podziemski. So I think the one thing that we are seeing pretty consistently is, and this is not a knock on Podziemski, me saying that I think he's a bad basketball player. He's not. He does a lot of positive things. But when there is not those really good players, and I'm talking specifically on offense, that can do the heavy lifting and can carry a really heavy load and can lead the way from a scoring perspective, when there's not those players out there, and some of that responsibility, maybe a little bit too much of that responsibility, falls on Podziemski, the results aren't very good. Right now, Melton is the only guy that can really put pressure off the dribble on the defense. It's Melton, and that's it. And Melton today had 17 points, 6 of 7 shots, and 5 of 6 from downtown. It's Melton. And Melton's also creating for others. 7 assists for Melton tonight. There was a moment in the fourth quarter where Podziemski missed an open mid-range jump from the left side, and it was an air ball. Not even close. And when I say air ball, it was not even close to the rim. Next possession, Melton, a great drive, drew 2 defenders, kicked it out to a wide-open Moses Moody, straight on 3, air ball, not even close. Back-to-back possessions I'm talking about. That's less of a knock on Pods and Moody, just me talking about how Melton is creating for others, and he's one of the few without Steph and Jimmy that can do that. But when Podziemski has people on the floor like a Steph or like a Jimmy or like both that can carry the offensive load, it frees him up to do all of the other stuff, all of the dirty work things, all of the small things that don't show up in the box score, but that show up in the plus-minus. But when those other players are not there and the heavier load has to then kind of be evenly distributed to the others, and some of that gets shoved on the Podziemski's plate, it takes away from his ability to do those other things. Steve Kerr calls it, him being a connector, and I think he's right about that. But when there's nothing out there to connect, what does a connector do? And I think that's where the Warriors are at in situations like tonight where Steph isn't playing and Jimmy isn't playing. And tonight was not a great night for Podziemski, despite going 4 for 4 to begin the game and scoring 10 points in a hurry. It was tough offensively the rest of the way. But ultimately, the Warriors lose this one 126-113, and they're now 29-26. All right. I've blabbered on for too long. I appreciate you guys for tuning in here to Warriors Wrap Up on 95.7 The Game. A rough one for the Warriors tonight, although it was pretty positive for a good stretch. 3.5 quarters in, they led. 2.5 quarters in, they led by 16 points, and then the Spurs absolutely dominate the rest of the way. They closed the game on a 56-27 run, and they win 126-113. Warriors go into the break sitting at 29-26. As we were talking about earlier, they are pretty square safe in the 8th spot in the Western Conference as it currently stands. Up next for the Warriors, a full week plus off. Their next game a week from tomorrow when Boston comes to town. Maybe the debut of Kristaps Porzingis, maybe the return of Steph Curry. We shall see. If it's not on Thursday, next opportunity for the Warriors is Denver on the Sunday following that Thursday. Again, we're not talking about this weekend. We're talking about next weekend. A week from tomorrow, Boston. 3 days after that, Denver. Both those games at home. And, of course, you can hear them here on 95.7 The Game. All right. That'll do it for me live from Chase Center. Thank you so much for tuning in as the Dubs fall 126-113. Enjoy All-Star weekend. Enjoy the break. And we'll talk to you, of course, every day on 95.7 The Game. But I'll talk to you on Warriors Live and Warriors Wrap Up a little more than a week from now as well here on 95.7 The Game. Thanks to Cam and to Steven behind the glass back in our San Francisco studios. Thanks to all of you for tuning in. Thanks to Bonte for listening as well and tuning into Warriors Wrap Up here on 95.7 The Game. I'm Mark Randy signing off. Have a great night. We'll talk next time on 95.7 The Game.
Your monologue the last couple of days. Bad job by you. What were you doing? There's no reason to miss that. Alex writes in, says, tell the world NASCAR is back and the GOAT Kyle Busch is on the pole. Bugging it, bugging it, bugging it, bugging it, bugging it, bugging it.